Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Loudoun County Sheriff Mike Chapman will join us. We'll talk specifically about having school resource officers inside of the schools. Seems like a common sense thing. We'll discuss it with the sheriff. And then at 5 o'clock, Heritage Foundation's Colin Amott will be here as we take a closer look how the Biden administration is using its power to distort the election this year. They're working overtime. We'll get to that with Colin. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Images keep pouring into our newsroom of college campuses across the country, undergoing all sorts of chaos, including right here in Washington. I'm seeing at GW University that some of the commies on that campus have now raised a Palestinian flag on a prominent flagpole on the campus. I'm not quite clear. I was asking on X earlier when I saw this. I don't know if that normally has an American flag there or not, but either way, there's now a Palestinian flag flying over GW University, and it goes with the George Washington statues that are all being defaced and destroyed by these lunatics. Here to discuss what's happening, Congressman Kevin Hern from Oklahoma's 1st Congressional District joins us on the phone. Congressman, good to have you with us, sir.
It's great to be with you.
Are you seeing any of this madness in Oklahoma?
We saw a brief outburst at the University of Oklahoma. It lasted just a few minutes, and it was quickly, squashed, and no disruptions on the school from everything we're getting from back home.
So the big picture here, how did we get here? How did we get to the point where we're seeing this happening all across the country? And these are not mere protests. There's all sorts of building occupations going on and defacing of all of these various institutions' property, fighting with cops. And, it's chaos. So how did we get here?
Well, certainly, when you look at it, it is, it's happened under President Biden. If you go back and his weak leadership around the world, as seen around the world, starting back in August of 21, and actually much longer ago than that as a senator and as a vice president. But that has culminated to what we saw Iran do by taking money from China and then filtering through their proxies to have the issue with Gaza and Hamas attacking Israel. And, we as Americans stood up for our allies initially, and then the president has come back now and said that, part of the Israeli armies are, committed war crimes, and he's now telling Benjamin Netanyahu not to go back into Rafah. And so he has quickly changed, and what that has done is emboldened the pro-Palestinian anti-Semitic movement. And he has been sitting on the sideline now for almost 2 weeks as it relates to our universities, and he comes out with a very weak statement today. That this dissidence we cannot stand for that. That's all we got. And we're starting to see certainly in the red states, as I mentioned about Oklahoma, Florida, Texas, we're seeing the mayors, we're seeing the governors have the safety and security of all students to be brought forth and saying we need to stop these because these have gone beyond the First Amendment rights that citizens get in the United States. They've gone into terroristic threatening, death threats to the Jewish students, to destruction of the campus, and complete disruption and shutdown of schools. So, mayors have moved in and started cleaning these places out.
Well, that's the line, right? The line is if you're violating the law, because in the United States we have a pretty great tradition of free speech. You're allowed to say stupid things in public. In fact, that's Joe Biden's entire political career summed up. But the reality here is you only get cuffed if you break the law. Is that right, Congressman?
It is. I mean, it's the old saying, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. I mean, when you start endangering other people's lives for your because your First Amendment voice isn't as loud as you think it should be, and you got to do these other anarchist-type things to others to make them, see your point even better, then you have a problem. And then what we saw in UCLA, because nothing has been done, now we've seen, pro-Israel a movement come in to fight the pro-Palestinians. So now we have actually a battleground in Southern California going on. Police are having to be brought in. They arrested some 130 Jewish sympathizers or pro-Israel people that were protesting. But we're also seeing in Columbia what Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, said, and he said this a few days ago, that these aren't students that are doing all this protesting. These are outside groups, and of the 300 that they've arrested so far, almost half of them weren't even students of Columbia. So one has to ask, what's the purpose of being on Columbia University campus protesting a university if you're not even a student there? How are you being harmed?
So do you get any sense that we're going to get to the bottom of that, the outside influences that are playing a role here? Is there any congressional investigation into that being launched soon?
Well, certainly, obviously, it's happened in real time. And, Congress, if you look at the true separation of powers, the DOJ, the FBI, and other local law enforcement should be doing this. And as we try to stay out of the local jurisdiction, but, we're seeing so many university presidents now stepping up that we're calling for them to step down. Yeah. And we're seeing this started back in December with Chairwoman Elise Stefanik and her passionate plea, and we saw Penn and MIT and people and others, Harvard, be brought to bear that they were not going to condemn these anti-Semitic movements. And so now here's what the culmination is, and the president has done nothing. He has been very weak on these issues, and so now it's being escalated to the federal level, and we're going to have to do things like curtail funding for higher ed. We're going to have to put restrictions on how endowments are taxed, and all these things are coming to bear as we speak.
Yeah, well, I mean, all that federal funding should be pulled from these institutions of higher learning because they're not actually producing anything useful, and Americans are wasting a lot of money on very destructive ideologies. But I want to talk about something specifically that you supported yesterday, this piece of legislation called the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. It got broad support from Republicans, cleared the House yesterday, and it's being described as a bill that is, to crack down on anti-Israel protests on these campuses. But they say it encompasses not just, this is the Washington Post's analysis of this, they say it not just threats against Jews, but also certain criticisms of Israel itself. They claim that the bill constrains criticisms of Israel. And by way of example, the definition of anti-Semitism that Congress is relying on here comes from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. And they give some examples on their website. And they say that if you draw a comparison of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis, that's anti-Semitism. Now, here in the United States, Congressman, I do hear people make comparisons to the United States leadership. Sometimes people, even like Joe Biden, saying, well, that's a Nazi policy. The Nazis would do something like that. My understanding is that's free speech. That's the First Amendment. That doesn't have to be right, but you're allowed to say it, right?
That's right. And I know there were some that looked at this bill as being too far to stopping a lot of First Amendment rights. So it's the most precious amendment we have to our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. That's why it's number one. All the different areas we have in press and freedom of religion and the five are what other countries don't have. That's why it's so precious. And there's always going to be this fine line when you have times, as we're seeing right now, of trying to show support for our friends, our allies, our long allies in Israel. And our Jewish people in the United States. And there's always going to be this pendulum that swings back and forth. There has been over the years on the First Amendment rights. There always will be. And we want to settle in a place that shows the American people and shows the world we're standing with Israel. We're not standing with Iran. We think what the Palestinians are advocating, certainly with what they're doing with Hezbollah, killing Jews. We're not going to stand for that. Yeah. And, when you look at Joe Biden, Joe Biden is worried about a two-state solution. The only two states he's really worried about are Michigan and Minnesota, not a two-state solution to solve the Middle East crisis. So we've got a lot of work to keep pushing on the president, pushing on the Senate. You thinking about this, Chuck Schumer, the highest official ever to be elected that's a Jewish member. He said so himself. He's doing absolute nothing. He's saying he will not put the anti-Semitism bill on the floor, but there are members of the Senate now are pushing this to get it on the floor next week for a vote. So a lot happening in real time right now in the United States Senate and the United States House of Representatives.
But why dance even anywhere close to infringing on the First Amendment if you can just basically issue a condemnation of what we're seeing on these campuses? And additionally, just say, hey, enforce the law. We have laws. You can't break your way into campus. You can't block Jewish students from access to the library. Well,
it's certainly when you have the separation of powers and the checks and balances, we have these laws. Congress has a difficult time and just as we have a difficult time of making the president execute the laws, that really comes from the American people pushing and the courts pushing on him, which is a very slow process. The same thing happens when the federal government starts trying to push on local law enforcement to execute the law. I mean, we saw the president of Colombia finally call in the police yesterday, and she said, I did it with reluctance. I mean, how can you say that as the president of that university? We saw the mayor wait, 9 days to bring action in with police officers.
Right.
In Congress, we're sitting here watching this, obviously, south of New York City, watching this unfold, not only there, but across America, in California and Florida and Texas and elsewhere. And you're right. There are laws on the book, just like there's laws on the book for the border.
Right.
But the executive branch is not enforcing those. So it has to go through the court system. In this case, we wanted to send a message to the world that we as America stand with Israel. And that was what the bill was about.
Congressman Kevin Hern from Oklahoma, thank you, sir, for your time today. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
He's got to head on out of here. So I just to extend a little bit on this. This is obviously, this bill that I've been mentioning is receiving a lot of attention. Again, when I first heard about it, I thought, okay, well, this sounds like a message bill, the kind of bill that you almost heard the congressman describe a moment ago, which is basically just broad condemnation of the commie lunacy happening on campus. But it's called the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. And the idea is that it would create a clear definition of anti-Semitism that the education department, under whatever administration controls the education department, Biden right now, could use to cut off funding to academic institutions found to tolerate such behaviors. But those behaviors include things like, again, drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. Look, that's crazy. That's crazy to say that. But I hear people in the United States say this thing. And also, the idea here is, like, let me see here. There's another one that stands out. Using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, example, claims of Jews killing Jesus would be forbidden. Now, as a biblical matter, that's actually in the Bible. But what that means is, as a Christian, as a Catholic, you never read that and go, oh, that means like my Jewish neighbor killed Jesus. That's not what it says at all. When you read the Jews killed Jesus, you think to yourself, we killed Jesus, humanity, that he died for our sins. That's what that means. It's not an invitation to modern day anti-Semitism. So are you precluded from saying things like this, like talking about the Bible? And so the whole point is, why are we even dancing on issues around constraining free speech at all? That's what I want to know. Why are we even in the zone for something like that? What they should be doing is stripping all of these damn colleges of this funding. It is insane what's happening there. And as a political matter, all Republicans have to do is come out and condemn this, call on law enforcement to enforce the law where it's being violated, and stand back. The left is destroying and consuming itself in real time. Republicans do not need to walk into a field of First Amendment issues and start stepping on rakes and hitting themselves in the face. So it's just, we'll see. We'll see what happens with all this. It passed out of the House yesterday. We'll see. You heard the congressman just say right now that apparently the Senate is not interested in taking it up. But the goal here should be not some, we're retooling the hate crime laws. No, crimes are crimes. Crimes are crimes. I don't care how stupid the thoughts in your head are. What I care about is if you violate the law, you should be held accountable for that. And that's it. That's it. It's the simplest thing. And defund these campuses. They're not helping us at all. It's like totally wrecking the country. It's churning out a destructive, mentally ill ruling class. And it's just skyrocketing the cost of education. And Joe Biden's turning around and he's taking your money to pay it off. Enough of that. Let's end that entire system. It's full. To the phones we go. Mike, Silver Spring, line 3. Mike, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Vince. So I would say multiple things can be true at once. We should very much consider defunding or removing funding from universities based on certain criteria. Well, that's true, unequivocally.
Right.
But and the things that some of these people are saying are vile and hateful.
Totally.
But First Amendment applies, to the government, and we shouldn't be conditioning a speech that is free speech, even how vile it might be, on we shouldn't be conditioning our money to what students say. We should be conditioning it on what actual people that work there or have policy influence there would be my condition.
Right. Yeah, so don't get into the business of trying to police speech. How about just get into the business of, like, stop funding these stupid institutions that are producing nothing of value? That's, like, the obvious place to be. Mike,
don't give a club to the Democrats who control the universities to then use against us in a year when the next thing happens.
Mike, thank you. Roger in Bristow wants to weigh in on this too. Line 5. Roger, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Yeah, hey, Vince. Appreciate the show.
Yes, sir.
You were talking about the anti-Semitism bill,
right?
But and then about the government. Well, the truth of it is, you cannot legislate morality. That's got to come from your belief system, which is either in God or in that man is ultimately good. That's the truth. And they dance around everything because you can't fix it without a heart change. That's the truth of it.
Yeah, I keep looking at these kids and I wonder what their upbringings were like. Like were they raised by strangers on the internet? These, like, the guys who were like smashing everything and attacking Jewish students on campus. It's insanity, and it's, as you point out, it's a moral question, isn't it, Roger?
Right. Yeah. Because the truth of it is, it's like anger out of control. It can be a good thing, but it can be a bad thing. When you look at the righteousness of Jesus in the temple. Yeah. Defending his Father's honor, and the Bible calls it righteous anger. But then if you go out and suddenly bust up, your neighbor's yard because you didn't like his chicken, so you destroy his chicken coop. Well, that's not righteous anger. You need to. Hey, dude, can you kind of control your chickens? And so it's a tough situation to go from. Yeah. In a Christian nation, because we have so many people who are, to say it no other way, anti-Christ people. They're letting their religion, not their relationship with God.
Well, they've dropped God entirely. The whole this belief that we are God is the single most poisonous belief that's leading to all of this chaos. Thank you, Roger. It's a very smart point. Let me get Art in Leesburg in here, line 6. Art, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, sir.
Thank you for taking my call, and I just say bravo to what you just said. But the point I want to make is that these people that say I'm with Hamas have rejected the very nature of what makes us unique as Americans. They've rejected the fundamental truth that upon which our government is based. Yeah. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Hamas recognizes no inalienable rights. They recognize no right to life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness. And if you go to their history, they indoctrinate their children in their schools to hate Israel and Jews from kindergarten through whenever.
Have you noticed, Art, what Hamas has been saying this week? They're very happy with what's happening on these college campuses. They keep issuing statements of support, which should worry the hell out of everybody for the very reasons you just laid out. Thank you, Art. Very good call. So many great calls on this program. Love our listeners. Mike Chapman is the Loudoun County Sheriff. He's coming up next right here on WMAL. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 4:35 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, we'll be joined by Colin Amott of the Heritage Foundation. We're going to chat with him about how the Biden administration is working with left-wing groups all across the country to meddle in the election this year. Colin Amott with the update on that subject ahead. You can join us 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. How important is it to have a healthy relationship with your local police officers? I think it's pretty important, actually. And my next guest definitely agrees with me on that subject. Loudoun County Sheriff Mike Chapman joins us on the phone. Sir, great to have you back with us on the show.
Hey, thanks. It's good to be with you.
You are in the news this week because you are calling for school resource officers to be in the schools in Loudoun County, in the 62 elementary schools there. First of all, why isn't that the case now? Why don't we already have school resource officers there? And tell us why you're calling for this.
Well, right now we have school resource officers in every middle and high school. Leesburg Police actually handles the ones in Leesburg, but we have all the rest. So we've got dozens of school resource officers covering middle and high schools. One of the things that we do have is DARE officers that are able to kind of cover in between their classes and everything, about one DARE officer per every 8 or 9 schools when it comes to elementary schools. But we don't have any dedicated school resource officers at the elementary school level, and we'd certainly like to go in that direction.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. As a matter of just like protecting the students first and foremost, it's not uncommon to see, unfortunately, in the aftermath of shootings or when they stop a shooting from occurring, that the assailant or would-be assailant will often target the most vulnerable schools. And quite candidly, the youngest students are the most vulnerable, aren't they, Sheriff?
Sure. You certainly saw that with Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, and then Sandy Hook, Elementary years before that. So it really is. You just never know. This can happen anywhere at any time, and what we want to do is make sure that our children are protected. And you just don't know when it could happen and where it could happen. So we want to make sure we're doing everything in our power to keep our kids safe.
How important is that relationship, especially for a young person, to begin interacting with police officers and getting to know them as a positive force in the community?
I think it's great. We got the National Association of School Resource Officers award for having an outstanding school resource officer program back in 2019. And a lot of that has to do with the interaction that we have. I think a lot of people just tend to think that, SROs are there, sitting by the front door with a gun in case somebody comes in to shoot it up or something. And that's not the case at all. We're very, very engaged all the way through. I mean, we help certainly at the elementary schools with the DARE curriculum, in the middle schools with the DARE curriculum. We're working now with the schools on fentanyl presentations across the board at the high schools. And so we're looked at in a couple ways as role models, as counselors, as people that can help provide direction to the kids. And so it's really it's an overall great relationship to have, and it's great for the kids to not see us as, they want to. It's good to have them see us as friends and not just as law enforcers, because we do so much more when it comes to that. Education, like I said, and with the drug programs, the fentanyl programs that we're doing, we're like on the ground floor doing everything we possibly can to educate and protect the kids.
Do you find that the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, the school board, are they receptive to this idea? Do you know in these early days?
Well, we've certainly been able to expand the program when it came to school resource officers in middle and high schools, and we did try to make an effort this time around, not for middle schools, but to just kind of grow the program a little bit, because we're really pretty tight on the staff. People calling sick or whatever, they might go a day without coverage or minimal coverage, that sort of thing. But we have in 2019 we proposed the idea of school resource officers in elementary schools. That basically got shut down. I mean, it really is. It does cost a bit, but if you look at this blue ribbon panel that was convened by Dr. Spence, with the Loudoun County Public Schools, the top priority, there were 11 findings that came out of that. The top priority was school security, and the question is, how do you get there? I mean, and I know they're kind of looking at different ways to do that, whether it's unarmed school security people, whether it's armed law enforcement people that can do, actually engage in so much more. And so it depends on how you really want to configure this thing. But I think we certainly want to try to get the ball rolling again in this. I think it's the best thing for the kids, best thing for the parents and the teachers to just know that they're safe, know that they're well protected, know that we have a great system when it comes to like emergency management, and if anything goes wrong, we can just kick that right into gear, and we're all trained identically. So I think that's very important to make sure that they feel that they're safe and that we have a stable environment and we know what we're doing there.
Yeah, and that's one of the only options really to get a good guy with a gun into the school, because Loudoun County not pro-American enough to arm the teachers, are they?
It's challenging at times dealing with as you've seen over the years here, Vince, with the Board of Supervisors and the school board, but we're doing the best we can under the circumstances.
I was just curious. I wanted to know. So, yeah, no, I do. They seemed, obviously, the Loudoun County leadership there seems comfortable having Loudoun County Sheriff's Department protect the middle and high school. So it would stand to reason that the elementary schools would follow. And so you mentioned money, though. That really is the issue, isn't it? So you would need both funding for this, and then I would assume as a result you would do some hiring to bring in the officers necessary to take care of these schools.
Yeah, sure. That's what we would do. I mean, the benefit that we have, quite frankly, is that we work. We work with the schools, we work with the boards, the school board, the Board of Supervisors, but we also answer directly to the people that we serve. As an elected official, that kind of gives us a different perspective on things, and really brings some balance to the way that we get things done. And it is a challenge because we would need certainly the schools behind us and the Board of Supervisors to fund this, and most importantly, the citizens of this community that see that it's a really important thing to do. So, we have to work together. It is expensive, and I'm not saying we just do this in one fell swoop. I think we've done things certainly over the years very incrementally, and you can do this in stages and maybe do it in clusters and start that in that direction and then kind of expand it from there.
Can you envision that there are certain elementary schools where it would be a priority to start with first, that certain schools more desperately need a school resource officer?
I think that's something that we'd have to evaluate. Really sit down and get into the weeds on that. If we were able to expand this, where we would go first. I don't know that it would be. It'd be a little premature for me to commit to anything here, but certainly we want to go where we think the kids need the most protection.
And Sheriff Chapman, you mentioned, of course, you're in an elected position. That gives you the benefit of having to, talk to voters and work with them and convince them you're doing a good job. What are you hearing from them? Are they supportive of this? Because obviously this involves spending government money, but you've got to have some parents out there that have a view on this subject. What are they saying?
We get, certainly we get opinions across the board on this, and I see a lot of that comes in. But I would say the majority, certainly of the parents, the people that comment on these issues, are supportive of this idea, and that's why it had come up before, and that's why it's coming up again. And I mean, what you don't want to do is wait until you have an incident, like what happened in Uvalde or Sandy Hook or several other schools that are having some, people that are bringing guns to schools at very young ages. We want to make sure that we're on top of this and that the safety of the kids is paramount. And I don't know that there's parents in this county that would really disagree with that. We want to protect our kids. That's really what we have to do.
All right. So what are the next steps for you, Sheriff Mike Chapman? Obviously, you've made your wishes known. Will you be addressing Loudoun County officials anytime soon here?
Well, I think the first thing to do is this panel came out. I think the recommendations have not yet been finalized. We wanted to make sure that the Blue Ribbon panel, that they understood where we came in on the security of the schools, not just security officers at the schools, which we don't disagree with, but the importance of having actually trained, sworn people that are certified under Department of Criminal Justice Services, law enforcement officers at the schools, because we can do so much more and have just a variety of capabilities there. So we'll work with the panel. We'll see where that goes, and then we'll just take it step by step and then try to get this ball rolling again.
And does your office screen the security of the schools in Loudoun County every so often?
We don't. I don't believe we screen the people that they hire. They hire those like the private security people independently.
Right.
We do work with them, and we work with the school security, the people that are over top of them. So we do have a good relationship with them. And if there are any concerns or whatever, I'm sure we'd hear about them, and so I think we're okay there.
Got it. So you don't go do like check how the entrance and exit procedures at the school and the door locks and the cameras. That's not something you do on a routine basis.
No, I would say that we do a lot of that. I mean, our school resource officers are very engaged with each of the schools that they're there. We do active violence incidents. We do all kinds of stuff. We just recently did a reunification process with the schools to have, to take it one step farther than just going to a school and addressing the problem at hand, but making sure that we could take the students and place them in a place where their parents could then come pick them up and keep everybody in one place and keep them safe.
All right. That's Loudoun County Sheriff Mike Chapman. Sir, thank you very much. Good to have you with us today.
Thanks a lot, Vince. Appreciate it.
Of course. That's and I really, really appreciate that. That, of course, caught my attention this week because I'm always thinking, the big thing on the left is they're always yanking cops out of schools. Get rid of them. And it's not because they love government spending, so that's not the issue. Oh, it's too expensive. No, that's not the issue. It's the anti-cop animosity. Get rid of them. Really? Get rid of them? Because what they're doing is, especially for, like the schools that they're hitting are in usually Democrat-run communities, and they spend years propagandizing the kids into believing, the Democrats do, into believing that the cops are the enemy, that the cops are the bad guy. But if any of us who have ever dealt with police officers when we were kids at a school level, cops in the school, you develop relationships with them, right? Like the school resource officer gets to know the kids in the hallway. They gets to know, especially some of the trouble kids. Hey, I'm watching. John, go to class. I'm keeping an eye on you, buddy. I know you're out. This stuff. So they develop these relationships, and at least you get a positive relationship with a police officer instead of this dehumanized, distant cartoon character that the left wants everybody to think of cops as. And in turn, you also get somebody there, hopefully with a gun, who can help put down a threat should it ever arise. And God forbid it does. Get a text here from our frequent guest, John Lott. He points out that one of the issues here with school resource officers is that would-be shooters will often assess if there is someone in uniform carrying a gun there and kind of measure when they're going to conduct an attack based on if they're there or not, pointing to the fact that we don't have air marshals in uniform because we kind of want to make it a guessing game for somebody who might attack. This could be another rationale for, well, one, you could have plainclothes school resource officers. That wouldn't be one way to do this. The other is arm some teachers. There's plenty of teachers who are capable of this. Prior military guys, people who can handle a gun. I said it to Sheriff Chapman. It's so unfortunate to think that Loudoun County is the kind of place where they won't even contemplate this. They're I'm a teacher, a gun. They're freaking out. Relax. Everything's going to be fine. You want good people. You want good people to be able to protect these kids. That's the idea. But there you go. So Sheriff Chapman pursuing this, and of course he'll have to do it with the blessing of the people of Loudoun County, who have to be willing to pay for all of this, in addition to having some cops there in the middle and high schools now, the elementary schools as well. All right. Just when you start to get sad about the state of the next generation, watching all this craziness, moments of hope burst out. You see all the frat bros across the country now starting to protect the American flag from the commies. And at Ole Miss, this moment, as anti-Israel lunatics chanting in the quad, a bunch of frat bros come out with their Trump flags. And here's what that sounds like. We want Trump. We want Trump. They're all yelling. So there's really some amazing things happening. And you don't want things to become really bad at all. They're already bad, but what I mean by that is you don't want these guys to become a bunch of little terrorists. Luckily, they're just like cartoonishly bad and weak, and they're all wearing their masks and their ski goggles and their keffiyehs, and it's all so stupid, and they're lecturing people. I have a video I'm looking at. We can't play it for you right now because it's got too many curse words in it, because little vulgarians are cursing at the college administrators here, but it's at a UCLA. It's UCLA's provost, this guy called Darnell Hunt. He goes in to negotiate with the encampment, and he's got a COVID mask on. I'm one of you, he's saying, and he's sitting down Indian style. Are you allowed to say that anymore? I think the kids, it's crisscross applesauce these days. That's probably what they say at UCLA. He's sitting there, and they're doing a negotiation. They're both on microphones because everything's a performance. They're on microphones, and he's not saying anything because he can't get a word in edgewise. This little spoiled brat's just lecturing him the whole time about how the cops are mean And the other guys, the Zionists, she says, they were chanting, "We back the blue," and they're on the side of the cops. Yeah, why aren't you on the side of the cops? Why is it just them? Why are you the enemies of the cops? Why did you do that? It's crazy. Crazy. Patty's in Montclair, line 5. Patty, good afternoon. You are on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, Patty.
Hello, Vince. Hey, I'm addicted to you now. I used to just listen to WMAL in the morning. I'm a big fan of Chris's. But now I'm addicted to you, kiddo. So when you're not there on Fridays, never mind. My question is, it's not a question, it's a suggestion. Any of us, whether we have any talent as photographers or not, could get really horrible, obnoxious pictures of what's going on at campuses all over the place. Take pictures. Trump could do it so much better. Have Trump put together a collage of all this going on, and then just run a crawl underneath that says, I'm here. Run a crawl underneath that says, "Is this where our tax money is going?"
You know something?
Joe Biden wants to pay.
I totally agree. But you know what's interesting? I think Americans are seeing this right now. You don't need to dress it up at all. It's already there. This is one of the reasons Trump is dominating in these surveys, survey after survey, Patty, because America is seeing this. They know where it's coming from, and they hate it. The left keeps on producing free advertisements for why they shouldn't be anywhere near power. And Patty, you're totally right about that. All right. Hold on. Colin Amott is going to be with us in a moment from the Heritage Foundation. We'll talk elections with him. Oh, and Patty, thanks for the compliment. Very nice.